Oh, here we are now. Okay, so hey, got my hair cut, got my summer cut. So anyway, I'm here with Dr. David Fisher in his garden. David has written a wonderful book, provocative book called Just Grow It Yourself. We're going to talk about his research after we take a tour of this absolutely marvelous garden. And so I'm going to turn it around and, well, come on, turn around. There we go. There is David. Okay, so David, thank you very much for favoring us with a tour of your garden and a little talk about what you have discovered with your research. So tell us a bit about your background.
Oh, well, I'm a botanist, basically. I have a PhD from University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I've been a lifelong gardener and did potato breeding research for 9 years after I got here, actually. And then all my experience with sustainability and so forth. So put that all together. And when the pandemic hit, I was ready. What I thought was I would write a book about victory gardens, because we all need to have gardens and so forth, right? But then, to my astonishment, what I discovered was that not only are victory gardens a good idea, they actually constitute a far more efficient way to produce food than the industrial food system. I mean, vastly more efficient from a number of different angles. I did not know that was the case until I started writing this book. So I predicted a lot of things, but I thought, well, you have to walk your talk.
Exactly. You got to do some lab work, right?
Right. So last fall, I decided to eat for only 1 month, only from my garden. Okay? And I did that, kept track of every single ounce of food, and then how much it took to grow that. And based on that, I predicted that with a garden this size, which is 35 by 40 feet, I could grow enough food to last me for a year. That's about 1,400 square feet, which is 1% of what it takes to feed the average American for 1 year, which is 3 acres.
3 acres, wow.
And so that's pretty astonishing. I would expect not many people to believe it. And in fact, even local food, sustainable ag types kind of, when I mention that, it kind of bounces off of them. They just kind of get this days like, oh, that's really good, Dave. And they don't really, it doesn't sink in. And that's understandable because I wouldn't have believed it either until I started doing all the research and then trying out things for myself. And that's what I find. And I put 40 years of teaching and research in environmental science, botany, sustainability behind that. I researched it very, very carefully. So it's going to come as a big shock because the narrative is that we have these incredible supermarkets with thousands of items, and it's also absolutely magically efficient, but it's not. In fact, it's just the opposite compared to home food gardens. Pound for pound of production. Now, obviously, home food gardens right now only produce a very small percentage of our overall food in this country, but they are inherently capable of replacing the current industrial food system when it comes to our food supply.
And now we're talking about vegetable proteins, but we're talking about a full complement of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, fiber, minerals, vitamins, everything that a person would need. You just, as I say, just add water. Now, I'm a vitamin guy, but I firmly believe that we should get every vitamin we possibly can from our food. And of course, if we grow it in good, healthy soil. Now, here's the interesting thing. I'm at 500 East Burlington. That is the original farmhouse in that whole tract of land. And so the ground that I'm on is about 3 feet of topsoil. Good black Iowa prairie topsoil. You, on the other hand, are in a building here on campus at Maharishi International University. And we're gonna take a tour here, so don't worry. We'll get around to seeing the garden. And this was concrete patio, and so they pulled the patio up. You said put 3 or 4 inches of topsoil, and then clay, and that was what you had to work with. So you have amended the soil. You've created a good growing conditions where you can grow good nutrient-dense food. So do you want to take us around to a tour and what you got in the garden here, and then we can talk some more?
Sure. Well, you want to start with the corn?
Sure. Let me just position myself so we can see both you and the corn.
Okay. Well, this is an heirloom variety of corn. It's called Bloody Butcher. I do not grow it for sweet corn. I get my sweet corn at the farmer's market.
That's right. You can't grow sweet corn for the price you can get it at the farmer's market.
Well, that's another whole discussion. But anyway,
Yeah.
I grow this to make grits with. Own grits, and it's extremely productive. In fact, in my book, I calculated that it's actually the yields I get actually outdo the commercial corn yields that you get all over the country by quite a bit, using a lot less nitrogen fertilizer. So anyway, that will produce quite a bit of corn.
Now this is a plot of how many feet by how many feet? It looks like about.
This is 12 feet by 12 feet, basically.
Okay, so 12 feet by 12 feet. That's 144 square feet of corn, and there's probably several hundred stalks in there.
There's about 120 or so.
Okay, 120 stalks, and each one has how many ears? One. Okay, so 120 ears of corn, and if you dry that, if it's you dry it and all that, and then you turn it into grits, and you can eat grits for a long time on that, right?
That's right. And this year, of course, I saved the biggest ears of corn from the previous time I planted, and I planted it a little bit more densely, but not nearly as densely as commercial growers do.
Right.
And so I expect to do even better. Last time I got about a third of a pound of corn, dried and shelled, from each stalk. I will be surprised if I don't get at least twice that much this time.
Wow. Over half a pound of corn times 120 stalks. That's 60 pounds of grits. Man, you gotta really love grits. Right?
Now I grind it up, but some of it becomes cornmeal.
Yes.
I have that for cornbread or whatever.
Cornbread, right.
1/3 cornmeal to 2/3 grits. Yeah. So that's what I do. I'm from the South. I love grits.
Okay, so why don't we? I'll step back, and why don't you take us? Show us what else you got going here.
Step back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, these two rows over here are what we call colored butter beans in our family. The two rows next to the fence. They're basically a type of lima beans, and they have been handed down in our family and planted for over 100 years, generation after generation. You don't see them in seed company.
David promised me some.
Yes,
I'm holding him to it.
I'm all for sharing.
Right. Genetic biodiversity. Right.
The next row is going to be green beans. They are not doing as well as I had hoped, but sometimes things rebound.
Yep. Hopefully they will. We've had a lot of kind of odd weather, a lot of rain. Some things like it, some things don't.
So this row here, the third row up to right here, is sweet potatoes, as is almost the entire next row.
This row here. Pardon me, folks. I don't mean to make you dizzy, but okay.
That's
Good.
Beauregard. They did extremely well last year. And then I have a few herbs here.
Herbs, celery.
Celery and basil.
You got this humped up so that the celery, you'll hump that up so the celery will blanch.
Yes, I just haven't done it yet. It's only in the last 2 or 3 days it started to actually really take off.
Okay, and you got a lot of green peppers here.
Peppers, which will be red peppers.
Yep.
More celery, and this I actually did do quite a bit of soil prep for.
Good. Yes.
And you see along the fence here,
Yep.
those are potatoes. Actually, this whole next row is potatoes.
Okay. David likes potatoes. Yes.
This row along the fence, though, I had gotten some little potatoes from the grocery store, the purple ones.
Yep.
They didn't grow right at first. They didn't even sprout, so I took them out and put in another type of purples, which is what these are.
Yep.
And then when I went to the compost pile where I put the little ones, there they were sprouting.
They were sprouting, those buggers. They were.
You want to grow that much,
I just take them and put them in here, right?
I just plumped the compost down on top of what little bit of lawn was there, put them in, and I've been shoring them up with lots of leaf mulch, and they just taken off. So fine, if you want to grow that much.
Yeah, that's right. Far be it from me to prevent you, right?
So I think we can walk down this.
Oh, I see okra. Look at that okra.
Yeah, the okra is in a row here that you can barely see because the next row over is a winter squash. And what this is a spaghetti squash.
Yes.
Last fall, everybody's a local Whole Foods grocery store had these little spaghetti squashes that had orange flesh, and they were much tastier than the usual white flesh. So I saved the seeds and planted them, and man, they just don't.
Wow.
What I expected them to do was to go through the okra, which will get 4 or 5. The okra is having a hard time keeping ahead of it.
Yeah, this stuff's getting kind of aggressive, isn't it?
So I'm just trying to keep it under control enough so that they can grow through and over to join the potatoes. And the potatoes will start to die out, I think, about the time the winter squash over there. But we'll see.
It's all a grand experiment, right?
How it all is. And some of the okra didn't come up, so I replanted, and I don't know if it's going to be able to compete with those aggressive vines or not. So I still have about 20 stalks of okra, and this is a hybrid from Gurney's, and it's supposed to be extremely productive.
Yep.
Allowing you to get pods larger than the average okra. So we'll see what it does.
But I planted red okra this year.
I had that last year. I had red. This year, this is a regular green okra.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a hybrid. It's supposed to be super productive. We'll see.
Okay.
So coming out over, this next row of beans here is pinto beans, which I found interestingly enough. Pinto beans have more fiber than any other kind of bean. They're what you grow, what you use in the Mexican cuisine.
Yep.
For refried beans and so on.
They knew what they were doing when they focused on pinto beans.
Anyway, all about pinto beans. They say they're half runners. I've never grown them before, which means you're supposed to maybe grow a 2 feet or so.
Well, I've found that a lot of times climbing beans, they don't do much. All of a sudden, boom, they shoot up.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's an experiment. I like
Yep.
to try different things. By the way, about here, you can see now the other half of this is butternut squash.
Okay, yep.
And you can see there's some kale sticking out.
Kale and some Swiss chard
Some
and
Swiss chard. So what I did, I wanted to make use of the space in between the winter squashes. So I put in kale, a little bit of spinach down the other end.
Yep.
And Swiss chard to make use of that space. And I've already harvested enough leafy green spinach, chard, and kale to have a 6-month supply if I were to eat, one nice sized portion every day. 6 months already.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
20 something.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go on this. Soon, I expect the winter squash to overgrow even the after the kale and the
right.
but it's still coming along.
Oh yeah, it's pretty hardy.
Yeah. So some tomatoes on the edge here.
Yep. Oh, look at these beautiful tomatoes. Look at these beautiful guys coming on. Oh my gracious.
Yeah, this is Brandywine.
Mm-hmm.
These are that's of course a potato leaf type of tomato.
Yep. Yep.
These are others, and they just don't look as impressive to me. I'm just different varieties. But I tried different things different times.
Look how beautiful that chard is. Wow, beautiful, big, thick, gorgeous. Yeah, wow.
Yep.
And those are shelling peas?
These are peas that I grew not so much for everyday fresh use, but to be dried, harvested dried, and I'll use them for soup.
Yep.
And they're actually pretty far along here. I expect another week or so, they'll be basically done. You don't save just any ordinary variety that are especially good for drying for split peas. Anyway, there are tomato plants behind you.
Yep. And
those
squash
are yellow
here.
Squash. I just have one hill of yellow squash, but I counted there's about 10 or 12 yellow squashes in there.
Yep.
This is some rhubarb. It's not doing much. Maybe next year. I just got it this year.
Oh, these are beautiful.
Of course, onions.
Onions and dill.
Dill and some other herbs in there. And I just have one. Watch out for.
Yep. Beautiful zucchini. Wow, look at that gorgeous zucchini.
Yeah. Yep. This is right next to your back.
Oh, here.
Little. These are my neighbor gave me. They're called Indian zucchinis. Didn't give them to me. His daughter brought them all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Wow.
And they're just barely getting started. I don't know if they're going to do anything. But that one ordinary zucchini plant is just going
Just
like gangbusters.
rocking.
And then
And
the only other thing down that way is carrots, and they're
Carrots.
doing really, really well. So
Wow.
we go back this way, so you
Sure.
don't have to
Yeah,
wait for
sure.
the zucchini plant.
Okay, so I was on what to call these different kind of tomatoes. So those are potato leaf tomatoes. Yep,
Yeah, because they have leaves that look more like
like
leaves.
potato leaves.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Brandywines are my favorite. You know, I come back to them year after year. And what I do with those is I harvest them and make tomato sauce out of them.
Yep.
I
Yep.
freeze the tomato sauce in one
It's hard not to like that.
portion plastic bags, and then I'm still eating tomato sauce from last year. If you go around
Yep.
that way, that'd be the easiest thing to do. So that's the other end of this. These are red and white.
Red and white potatoes.
Right about where you are now, they stop, and the rest of them are purple.
Purple.
All
And the purple all have nice antioxidants, all kinds of.
they are not only that, but they have a good bit lower glycemic index than regular white potatoes do.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
I really like the flavor of them. They're sort of nutty, and they're just so much better. But in the past, I haven't had that much luck growing them. This year, they started out really slow, but then they've really come on.
Well, David is going to do a little bit of consulting for me. Of course, I don't have an organized garden. I got a bunch of higgity-piggity beds, and I can see that if I really want to get serious of it, I'm gonna need to do something different. But anyway, so David, the whole idea of your book that you document meticulously as a scientist is that this is not just something that's good because it's nice to get out in the garden and have a garden. A small plot. This is here. We're in the middle of a university campus. Okay, there's some little housing here, and the Golden Dome Market over there, and the meditation domes back there, and classrooms all over. So this is a little old piece of lawn, much less than what most people's lawn.
Huge tree there.
Yep.
There's a lot of shade. Shade is building. I get about 6.5 hours of direct sunshine. That's all.
That's all. And
Not very much good soil, and I only used a spade to cultivate all of this.
Yep.
A little bit of hoe, a little bit of a fork. So the point I want to make is, if I can do it at age 72 with hand tools and with a lot of challenges, anybody can do it.
well, that's exactly. You're not sitting like on 4 feet of black dirt like I am, or 2 feet of black dirt.
On average, a day, maybe half an hour, maybe over the growing season, maybe close to an hour during some parts of the year. Not very much time.
See, that's people look at my garden and say, "Oh, that must be so much work." And I go, "Not really. Once you get everything set and you're heavily mulched, David is mulching with leaves. Mine turned to compost somehow, so I have straw. But I mean, the point is that leaves are cheap, like they fall off a tree, so you can just keep them. So this is really, really exciting. I'm looking forward to the launch of David's book on the 12th of August. Anyway, David, thank you very much. This is absolutely fabulous. It's going to be a lot of fun with people watching this, so I'll turn it around and tell everyone. Okay, folks, so there you have it from Fairfield, Iowa, David Fisher's garden, 30 by 40, feed them all year. Wow, pretty impressive. Take care. Okay, so I thought we were done, but clearly we were not. David pointed out, he says, "I'm surprised you didn't ask about the netting." And I go, "Well, the netting over the corn, I noticed it, but I didn't have the curiosity to ask." So I'm going to turn around and have David explain how he protects that very precious 120 stalks of corn. Okay, David, what do you got here?
Well, we'll go in reverse. The netting, that's bird netting, and it keeps some little birds that otherwise will strip the tassels of their stamens, which is the source of the pollen. And of course, if you don't have pollen on the corn, you don't get any corn. I've never heard of anybody else having to do this or read about it, but every year that's what I get. Those little birds, they come in flocks and they'll just strip it off. So I have to put up this canopy of bird netting to keep them from doing that. But that's not the only thing. Everybody wants this corn.
Everyone, it's very popular corn.
Look down at the bottom. You see there's 2 strands of wire there. That's to keep out the raccoons. The
Yeah.
raccoons will come in and just destroy. As soon as the ears start filling out, they'll destroy it. But even before that, when it first starts coming up, if I don't protect it with a tent of chicken wire, the crows come in and just pull up the little seedlings and eat the kernels. And before that, chipmunks will come in and actually dig up the kernels.
Right.
So I put hot chutney on to keep them from doing that.
You just put chicken wire over the top of them.
That's to keep the crows from coming in and pulling them up and just eating
Yeah.
the kernels at the bottom. So for me, corn, it's like a real challenge to grow it. The first 2 or 3 years I didn't have any of those problems, but that was before they discovered it.
Oh, all of your neighbors discovered, hey, where are we eating dinner? Oh, the Fishers. Okay, great, let's go. Right?
So it's just amazing, but it's worth it because I get more meals out of corn per square foot of garden space than any of these other vegetables, by far.
Wow.
It's so nutrient dense and so calorie dense that it's worth the trouble. Besides which, I just love corn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have had grits. I have been a recipient of a grits breakfast from David a number of years back, and memorable enough that I remember it in great detail. I think it was white corn grits. So, anyway, now that, folks, is all the news that's fit to print from Fairfield, Iowa this morning. We'll see you all later, and thank you, David.